On my 30th birthday, my mom gave my childhood room to my sister's dog and said I could sleep in the garage. She tossed my trophies, turned my bed into a dog couch, then smirked. "You never deserved that space anyway." I left with nothing, heartbroken and furious, until I bought the house next door and started digging. I turned 30 the day my mom told me I didn't deserve a bed. I'd driven 6 hours from Pittsburgh to my hometown of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, just to spend my birthday with her. I'd imagined a quiet dinner, maybe a cake, maybe a few old photos and some easy laughter like we used to have before everything went sour. But when I pulled into her driveway, my old window, the one with the faded "Go Tigers" sticker still in the corner, had a new sign taped inside, "Dog area, keep out." At first, I thought it was a joke. My sister, Kendra, always had a dark sense of humor, and she'd been obsessed with her golden retriever, Buddy, since she got him. But when I walked inside, the smell hit me before anything else. Wet fur, carpet cleaner, and the faint, sour smell of bleach. My room, my childhood room, the one I painted dark blue with my dad before he died, was unrecognizable. The twin bed was gone, replaced with a giant cushioned dog couch. My high school trophies, track medals, debate awards, even my college diploma were gone. I saw the trash bin outside through the open window, overflowing with crumpled picture frames and bent metal. And then my mom appeared in the doorway, holding a mug of coffee like she'd been expecting me to walk into this nightmare. "Oh, you're early," she said flatly. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come." "Mom, where's my stuff?" I asked, my voice shaking. She shrugged. "You never came back for it. Kendra needed the space for Buddy. You can sleep in the garage if you want." I laughed a little, hoping she'd smirk, tell me it was a joke, but she didn't. Her lips curved into something else, something cold. "You never deserved that space anyway," she said. "You left. You made your choice." That sentence hit me like a punch. "You mean when I went to college? The scholarship you bragged about to everyone?" Her expression didn't change. "You could have stayed. Family comes first." Behind her, I heard Kendra's voice from the kitchen, calling for Buddy. Then the sound of nails skittering on my old hardwood floor. My dog-loving sister didn't even look up when she saw me. She just said, "Hey, happy birthday, I guess," while Buddy jumped onto what used to be my bed. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. This wasn't just neglect. This was punishment. That night, I sat in the garage on an old cot, listening to the hum of the freezer and the steady sound of Buddy barking upstairs. Every few minutes, I'd look at the empty shelves where Dad's tools used to be, things Mom must have sold or tossed after he died. When I closed my eyes, I saw her face again. That smirk, the satisfaction in it. By morning, I'd decided I was leaving for good. But as I packed the few things I'd salvaged from the trash, I found something strange wedged under the garage stairs. Something that didn't belong there. An envelope. Old, yellowed, and addressed in my father's handwriting. It was marked, "For Evan, when you're ready." My hands went cold. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it, wondering what ready meant, and what could possibly be hidden in a house where even my existence had been erased. I thought that envelope would answer something. Instead, it started everything. When people ask me about my family, I usually say we were fine. That word covers a lot. It hides the fights, the favoritism, the quiet manipulation that seeped through our walls like humidity. We weren't a disaster. We were a slow collapse no one noticed until it was too late. I grew up in that 2-story colonial on Maple Hill Drive. My dad, Paul, was the glue, an old-school mechanic who could fix anything and had this way of making even the smallest things feel stable. Mom, Denise, was the opposite. She liked control. She ran the house like a business. Strict, efficient, cold when she wanted to be. Then there was Kendra, my younger sister, 2 years behind me but always the favorite. Mom doted on her. Dance recitals, piano lessons, birthday parties with themes and custom cakes. I got happy birthday sung off-key in the kitchen with a store-bought pie. It wasn't that Mom hated me. She just saw me as something to manage, not love. Dad used to notice. He'd pull me into the garage when I was about 12, hand me a wrench and say, You and me, Ev. We'll build our own kind of family out here. And we did. He taught me everything. How to replace a carburetor, how to fix a leaky pipe, how to shut up when you're angry until the right time to talk. When he got sick, lung cancer, it was like the air in that house turned heavy. Mom grew sharp, frantic. She blamed the world, the cigarettes, maybe even him. But the way she looked at me changed, too. Like somehow, I was carrying something she couldn't stand to see anymore. Dad passed when I was 19. I remember the funeral. Rainy, muddy, and silent except for Kendra crying loud enough for everyone to see. Mom stood there like a statue. Not one tear, not one tremor. I tried to talk to her that night, to tell her I missed him, and she said, "You were always his favorite. Don't act like you lost more than I did." I never forgot that. After that, college was my escape. I got a full ride to Penn State. I called home every week at first, but Mom's calls grew shorter, more dismissive. When Kendra started failing classes and racking up debt, Mom called to guilt me into helping her out. I sent money I couldn't afford. Then Kendra dropped out anyway. When I finally came back after graduation, Kendra was still there, living rent-free, doing nothing but posting yoga selfies and manifesting abundance, while Mom praised her for staying close to home. That's when I realized I wasn't just the forgotten child. I was the disposable one. Still, I tried. Every holiday, every birthday, I showed up. I fixed her leaking roof, replaced her water heater, even repaired Kendra's car when she, accidentally, drove it into a ditch. I did all that because some part of me thought that maybe if I just showed I cared enough, Mom would remember who I was. But standing there on my 30th birthday, staring at the shredded remains of my trophies, I saw it clear for the first time. She hadn't forgotten me. She'd erased me, deliberately, and that envelope in my hand, the one in Dad's handwriting, felt like the only piece of me left. When I finally opened it, I expected a letter. But instead, there was a folded blueprint of the house, my childhood home, and at the bottom, written in Dad's shaky handwriting, were 6 words that made my throat close. Don't let her find the cellar. There was no cellar in that house. At least not one I'd ever known about. I didn't sleep that night. I kept unfolding and refolding that blueprint until the creases tore. The house looked the same. Living room, kitchen, 3 bedrooms upstairs. But near the back, underneath the laundry room, was a small rectangle labeled utility sublevel. There was no utility sublevel in that house. I knew every inch of it. I grew up there. The next morning, I couldn't shake it. I drove around town aimlessly, but my head kept looping the same thought. Why would Dad hide a room from Mom? By the time I pulled back into the driveway that evening, my mother's car was gone. Kendra's too. Probably out shopping or getting buddy groomed. Perfect. I still had the old garage key, and I told myself I was just going to look. Just peek. But deep down, I knew this was more than curiosity. It was something boiling in me, rage maybe, or something older than that. The laundry room was different now, remodeled and retiled since Dad died. But when I peeled back the mat near the dryer, I noticed a thin outline in the floor that didn't match the rest of the tile pattern. I ran my fingers along the edge. There was a gap, tiny but real, and beneath it, wood. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. I pried the tile up with a screwdriver, then another. The grout cracked, and suddenly I saw it. A wooden hatch, about 2 feet wide, painted over to blend in. There was a handle, rusted but still there. I hesitated. Every part of me screamed that I was trespassing, that if Mom came home, she'd call the cops, or worse, she'd just smile that same cold smile and tell me I was pathetic. But that only made me grip the handle tighter. When I pulled, the hatch gave a groan like something exhaling. Cold air rose up from below. It smelled like dust and metal and something faintly chemical. The space beneath wasn't deep. A narrow staircase led down maybe 8 feet. I turned on my phone's flashlight and went down slowly, the beam catching old cement walls and pipes. At the bottom was a small concrete room, empty, except for a metal cabinet and a workbench I didn't recognize. On the bench, a few old jars filled with nails and screws. Normal enough, but the cabinet was padlocked. Dad never padlocked anything. That's when I started to shake. My hands weren't steady when I pried the hinge loose with the screwdriver. The lock snapped clean off and the door swung open. Inside were 3 old photo albums, a box of cassette tapes, and a manila folder with my father's handwriting again. Property records, keep safe. I pulled one of the albums out. It wasn't family photos. It was pictures of paperwork, deeds, old letters, official-looking documents with my mother's name on them. Some were from before I was born. Then I found one photo that made me sit down right on the floor. It was Mom, pregnant. Not with me, but with Kendra, and beside her another man. Not Dad. The man's arm was around her, smiling, young, confident. And scrawled on the back of the photo, in Dad's writing, were 4 words that didn't make sense yet. She thinks I don't know. My stomach twisted. I barely had time to process it before I heard the garage door above me open. Car tires crunching. Buddy barking. Voices. Mom and Kendra were home. I shut the cabinet, killed the flashlight, and climbed up fast, my heart slamming against my ribs. I barely had time to slide the hatch back into place when I heard Kendra calling, "Evan, are you still here? Mom said you left." I didn't answer. I ducked into the hallway and slipped out the back door before they saw me. That night, I sat in my car on the old county road, staring at the photo of my pregnant mother with a stranger. My father's warning echoed in my head. Don't let her find the cellar. Whatever that hidden room was, whatever Dad knew, it wasn't just about family secrets. It was about something big enough that he built a secret place to hide it from her. And if she found out I'd been down there, I wasn't sure what she'd do. But the next morning, I saw the for sale sign on the lawn of the house next door to hers. That's when an idea started forming, slow, dangerous, and perfect. If she didn't want me under her roof, I'd get close another way. Buying the house next door to my mother felt like reclaiming something she'd stolen from me. The place was small. Beat-up siding, half-dead lawn, creaky floors, but it had a clear view of her back porch. The realtor asked if I was sure I wanted to live that close to family. I lied and said yes, smiling. The truth was, I didn't plan to live there forever. I planned to watch. First, Mom didn't even know. I kept the blinds drawn, fixed the place up quietly, moved in after dark. Every day, I worked my remote job, then studied the blueprint from Dad's letter, tracing the hidden sublevel over and over until I had it memorized. A few nights later, I went back into the cellar again. This time, I brought a padlock of my own. I was shaking, but not from fear, from purpose. I spent hours down there, flipping through those property records, piecing together dates, comparing signatures. Then I found something that made my mouth go dry. A deed transfer from 1994, the year I was born. The house was listed under Paul and Denise Miller, jointly owned. But next to it was another document, hidden behind the others. A corrective deed, dated 6 months later, changing ownership to Denise Miller only. Dad's name had been crossed out. The signature under his was jagged, uneven, and barely legible. Forged. I stared at it, the paper trembling in my hand. My father hadn't just hidden this stuff to be paranoid. He'd been robbed. And my mother had done it. The old manila folder had more. Bank withdrawals, property taxes, even a few torn pieces of correspondence. One stood out, a letter from my dad's old lawyer. The handwriting was faint, but it read, "Paul, if she goes through with this, you need to call me immediately. She can't legally remove you from ownership without." The bottom half was missing, ripped off. I sat there for hours in that cold little room, surrounded by the proof that my mom had taken the house from Dad while he was still alive, probably while he was sick and too weak to fight her. And somehow she'd hidden it all. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when I found the box of cassette tapes. They weren't labeled clearly, just dates. March 4th, 1997. May 17th, 1998. September 2nd, 2002. I brought one upstairs to the car and played it in the old tape deck. The sound was muffled, scratchy, but I recognized the voice immediately. My father's. "She's moving money again. I don't know where. I think she's setting something up with him. Kendra's too young to know what's happening. Evan doesn't need to see this. The recording cut out suddenly. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, heart thudding. With him. Who was him? The man in that photo? I played another tape. If anything happens to me, it wasn't the cancer. You tell the police to check the garage. That one ended too. My stomach dropped. All these years, I thought my dad died quietly in hospice. I thought cancer took him. But now I couldn't stop thinking about the way Mom never cried. The way she got rid of everything he owned. The way she told me I never deserved that space. It hit me all at once. What if Dad hadn't died naturally? What if she'd helped it along? The room spun. I wanted to deny it, tell myself I was reaching. But my gut knew. My mom wasn't cruel out of grief. She'd been cruel out of guilt. The next morning, I went outside pretending to water my lawn. Mom came out on her porch, spotted me, and froze. Then she smiled that sharp little smile and waved. "I didn't know you were moving back," she said. "Didn't think you liked it here anymore. I figured I'd keep an eye on things," I said. She didn't flinch, but her smile tightened. "You always did like snooping, didn't you?" That was when I knew she knew. She didn't know what I'd found yet, but she could sense I'd been in her past, rummaging through the parts she thought she'd buried. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. It lasted only a second before she covered it with another smirk. "You really should have stayed gone, Evan," she said softly. Then she went inside. That night I heard digging. Not from my side, but from hers. For 3 nights straight, I heard the same thing. Metal scraping against dirt, muffled thuds, and the whine of a shovel hitting rock. The sound came from behind her house, near the back fence line that separated her property from mine. At first, I thought I was losing it. Maybe I was just imagining the sound because I wanted there to be something sinister. But on the 4th night, I saw it. She was out there. At 2:43 a.m., under the dim glow of her motion light, my mother, wearing gardening gloves and one of Dad's old flannel shirts, was digging in the backyard. The same spot where the ground had always looked uneven, near the old lilac bushes. She moved slowly but deliberately, like someone who knew exactly where to dig. And then, for the first time in my life, I saw her look scared. Not angry, not smug, scared. When the light flicked off, she froze, then hurried back inside. That was the moment I stopped being the heartbroken son. I became the hunter. I started planning. First thing I did was set up motion-triggered cameras along my side of the fence, angled toward her backyard. Cheap Amazon ones, disguised as garden lights. I wired a second set in my living room window facing her kitchen. I didn't know what I'd catch, but I wanted eyes everywhere. Second, I copied everything I found in the cellar. Photos, documents, the tapes, especially the tapes. I backed them up to 3 drives and hid them in different spots around the house. If she found one, I'd still have the rest. Then I started digging, literally. While she was at work, she'd started a part-time job at a local bank after Dad died. I went into my own backyard and began tunneling just a few feet along the fence line. I figured if she was digging on her side, I could intercept whatever she was after before she got to it. The soil was hard, rocky, but I didn't care. Every time I lifted a shovel of dirt, I thought about that birthday, that smirk, those words. "You never deserved that space anyway." By the end of the first day, my arms were sore and bleeding from blisters, but I dug about 3 feet down. Nothing yet. That night, I went through the tapes again, hoping for a clue. Around the middle of one labeled July 2003, I heard my father's voice say something that froze me cold. "She keeps asking about the life insurance. If she brings up the pills again, I'll record it. I can't let her do it." I paused it, rewound, played it again. "If she brings up the pills again." He knew. He knew what she was planning. And she'd done it anyway. I wanted to march over there right then, bang on her door, scream the truth in her face. But I stopped myself. Screaming wouldn't change her. It wouldn't fix what she took from me, or from him. No, I needed something quieter, smarter. I started compiling everything into a folder: dates, tape transcripts, photos. I titled it Denise Miller Proof of Fraud. I planned to take it to the police once I had physical evidence of what she'd buried out there. But a part of me, darker, colder, wanted more than justice. I wanted her to feel what I felt. I wanted her to watch everything crumble while I stood next door, silent, knowing she couldn't stop it. So I waited. I let her keep digging. And one night, the cameras caught it. She was out there again. But this time, she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her. Older, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket. He looked familiar, in a way that made my stomach twist. The same face from that old photo, the man with his arm around her when she was pregnant with Kendra. And he was holding something small, metallic, glinting under the moonlight. A key. The next morning, I checked the footage frame by frame. At one point, he leaned in close to her, and even though the sound had no audio, I could read his lips. Just 3 words. It's still there. That's when I realized they weren't looking for something. They were recovering it. And if my dad had buried whatever it was before he died, then I had to find it first. I didn't care how deep it was or what it was. The truth was down there, and I wasn't leaving until I dug it out myself. It was a cold night when I finally hit something that wasn't dirt. 3 days of digging, 12 hours at a time. My palms were blistered raw, my nails packed with soil. I tunneled just far enough that the fence line above my head looked like a prison bar. The cameras I'd set up caught nothing for 2 nights, no movement, no lights. My mother hadn't been outside since that night with the man. Maybe she thought I'd left town again. I was about 4 feet down when the shovel hit metal with a dull clang. My chest tightened. I knelt and brushed the dirt away with my hands until I saw the edge of a rusted metal box, about the size of an old ammo container. The top was dented, the latch half broken. When I pried it open, the smell hit me first, old paper and something sharp, like chemical rot. Inside were plastic bags filled with documents, all folded neatly and wrapped in waxed paper. Whoever had buried it meant for it to last. The first bag I opened held photographs, Polaroids, dozens of them. I wiped off the dirt and started flipping through them. Not of family, not of Dad's shop. These were photos of people. Strangers. Men, mostly, sitting in parked cars, standing in front of storefronts, walking into motels. Each one had a handwritten note at the bottom, names, dates, sometimes license plates. Then I saw one that made me stop breathing. A man lying on a floor, half turned toward the camera. A bruise on his neck, mouth half open, eyes glazed. The back of the photo read, February 12, 2002, done. No loose ends. The handwriting wasn't my father's. It was my mother's. I dropped the picture, staring at it like it could move. My stomach turned. I flipped through the rest, faster now, heart racing. Every one of them had her handwriting, short, cold notes. Paid in full. Car disposed. Never came back. There must have been 20 photos, maybe more. Then I found the envelope at the bottom of the box. On the front, written in my father's shaky hand, was a single line. If you're reading this, she's still lying. Inside was a letter. The paper was brittle, ink faded, but the words were still legible. Evan, if you find this, it means she never stopped. She's been doing this for years, working with that man, the one she calls Carl. He's not her friend. He finds people, lonely ones, desperate ones, and she cleans up after him. I tried to stop her. Couldn't. The cops wouldn't believe me. They thought it was the cancer making me paranoid. The pills weren't mine. I didn't take them. She switched them. I'm sorry I didn't protect you and Kendra better. I buried this so you'd know the truth one day. Don't confront her alone. She'll do what she's always done. Make you doubt yourself. Don't trust your sister either. She knows. My whole body went cold. Kendra knew? I stumbled back out of the hole, clutching the letter and the photos, trying to breathe. Everything I thought I knew. Every fight, every cold silence. It all felt staged now. Like they'd been keeping me out of something darker than just family resentment. The next morning, I tested it. I called Kendra. Told her I'd found something weird in the yard and wanted her to come by. She sounded nervous right away. What do you mean, weird? Just some old stuff from Dad. Papers. There was a pause. Then she said, You shouldn't go through that, Evan. Mom's been through enough. That's when I heard it in her voice, the shift. Fear. Not sadness. Fear. Later that afternoon, She pulled into my driveway. She didn't knock. She just walked right in, like it was her house, and went straight for the kitchen. "Where is it?" she asked, eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" I said, playing dumb. "Don't lie to me." I didn't answer. I just turned my laptop around and hit play on the footage from 2 nights earlier. Her and Mom digging in the yard, the man standing behind them, the key in his hand. Her face drained of color. "You shouldn't have seen that," she whispered. "What are you digging for, Kendra?" But she didn't answer. She just turned, fast, like she was about to bolt out the door, then stopped dead when she saw the photos laid out on the table. Her voice cracked. "Oh my God, you found them." "Found what? What the hell is this, Kendra?" She didn't look up. "You shouldn't have come back, Evan." Then she said something that didn't make sense until much later. Something that chilled me worse than the letter ever could. She told me she'd buried him deeper, and then she left. I didn't move for a long time after that. Just stood there, staring at those photos, the letter, the hole in the yard I hadn't finished filling. It wasn't just documents buried out there. It wasn't just secrets. And the next time I went digging, I found out exactly what she meant. The ground behind my mother's house had always been soft near the lilac bushes. I used to think it was because of rain runoff or old roots. But that night, after what Kendra said, I couldn't stop staring at that patch of dirt. She told me she'd buried him deeper. Him. The word ate at me. By 1 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my flashlight, gloves, and shovel and went back out. The November wind cut through my jacket, and the smell of wet earth hit me as soon as I pushed the shovel into the ground. It only took about an hour before I hit something that wasn't soil. A layer of hard plastic, buried about 5 feet down. My flashlight beam caught a faint glint of metal beneath it. I cleared more dirt, faster, my hands shaking. Then I saw it, a dented license plate. PA 6935JH. My dad's old Ford. The truck he'd supposedly sold a few months before his cancer got worse. Mom had told me he traded it for money to cover hospital bills. But now, here it was, buried behind her house under layers of dirt. I pulled more soil away, uncovered the tailgate, then the smashed back window. Inside the cab were black trash bags, heavy and slumped forward. When I tore one open, I saw what I'd been half expecting and still wasn't ready for. Old clothes. My dad's flannel shirts, the ones Mom said she'd donated. A few tools from his shop, the same ones that disappeared after the funeral. And then, in the last bag, a collection of small pill bottles. Prescription labels still intact. His name printed on each. But the pills weren't the ones I remembered seeing when I helped him take his meds. These were marked morphine sulfate, far stronger than anything hospice had prescribed him. Each bottle had been filled, emptied halfway, then refilled again. It hit me like a flash flood. Mom hadn't just forged those medical records. She'd altered the medication. She'd overdosed him slowly, just enough to make it look like the cancer was taking its course. And she'd done it all while keeping me away at college, feeding me lies about how peaceful he'd gone. My stomach turned, bile rising in my throat. The letter's words came back, echoing in my head. The pills weren't mine. She switched them. She had, and she'd gotten away with it. But that wasn't all. Inside the glove box, taped shut, was another envelope, this one newer, sealed with a strip of duct tape. My hands were shaking so bad I almost ripped it apart. Inside were documents stamped with a company name, Carlisle Construction LLC. That name, Carl. The same man from the photos. The same one who'd been digging with her. The documents were checks, large sums, all made out to cash, all signed by her. The memo line on each read, consulting or cleanup. Cleanup. I started piecing it together in my head, like a nightmare assembling itself in real time. My mother had been laundering money through that man's fake company. My father must have discovered it. Maybe during his illness, maybe before. He probably confronted her. And when he threatened to expose her, she silenced him. Then she buried the truck, the evidence, behind her own house like a trophy. She didn't just kill my father to hide money. She killed him because he'd stopped being useful, because he'd figured her out. And when I came back, she erased me too, tore down my room, threw away everything that made me his son. That was her way of finishing the job. I sat there in the dirt until dawn, staring at that truck, the plastic torn open around it. The sunrise hit the house, and for the first time I saw it for what it really was. A grave. She'd been living next to her own crime scene for 15 years, and she never once looked guilty. She'd built her life on top of his body. Literally. And Kendra knew. She'd helped her cover it up, because Mom had promised her something in return. I didn't understand what until later that day, when I checked the county records. The house, the same one Dad bought, the one Mom stole from him, had a new name listed as beneficiary. Not Denise Miller. Kendra Allen. My sister. Mom had rewritten the deed, left the house to her, and planned to take the secret to her grave. That's when I stopped calling it family, and started calling it what it really was. A crime scene with bloodlines. But I wasn't going to the police. Not yet. No, I had something better planned. I was going to make her confess with her own hands. I didn't want fireworks or theatrics. I wanted proof, leverage, and a way to make her watch the thing she'd buried for 15 years become the instrument of her undoing. I wanted her to know, in every breath she took, that the life she'd built on top of Dad's body had a very short half-life. I started small and legal. I fed copies of the photos, the tapes, and the forged deeds to a lawyer friend I trusted from college. Someone who still owed me for teaching him how to change the oil in his Civic. He read everything once, twice, then sat back and said, "This is criminal. If you hand this to me, I'll take it to a district attorney who's not scared of hometown reputations." He also advised me to get the originals backed up, notarized copies made, and to let the county records office know there was a potential fraud case on the deed. That would flag things. That would slow her down. But I wanted more than slow. I wanted panic. So I gave Kendra an out she couldn't refuse. I drove to her apartment with a stack of printouts and a recorder in my pocket. She let me in like I'd grown claws. When I slid everything onto her table, the photos, the transcript, the copies of checks made out to cash, her hands trembled as if she wanted to clap them shut and smother the whole thing. I told her very quietly, "You can roll with me or you can roll with her." I offered her the choice in plain terms. Help me get her to confess now, sign the deed over to me, then I go to the DA with everything. Or I hand everything to the lawyer, who would subpoena bank records and the police would get a search warrant for Mom's property. Either way, the truck gets dug up, and when the county digs it up, they'll take evidence out to the lab. Kendra's name is already on the future beneficiary list. If this goes public, she's implicated whether she likes it or not. Her face went white for the first time since I was a kid. She broke. Not because she suddenly loved me, but because the fear of losing the house she'd been promised was stronger than the protection Mom had given her. She signed a notarized statement about having helped move things and about Mom's odd insistence on hiding certain assets. I recorded the whole conversation. She cried and called Mom while I listened, promising to get the house signed over before anything else happens. She meant it, or she meant to try. The day I wanted to go public, I did it surgically. I didn't invite an audience to a backyard tirade. I arranged a meeting at the county records office with Kendra and my lawyer, and with a DA who finally looked like he'd been waiting for something to break his way. I handed over originals, the cassette tapes, the photos, the forged deed, the checks. The DA's face hardened in that way that's not personal. It's procedural. "We'll need the truck excavated," he said. "We'll need to interview Denise and Kendra under oath." That afternoon, they served my mother with a subpoena and a search warrant. She answered the knock on the door in flannel like everything about her life was normal and expected. When they told her they were seizing her paperwork and that she would need to come down to the office, her smug face thinned into something I hadn't seen before. Raw calculation. She asked calmly where Kendra was. Kendra sat there in the chair, hands folded, staring at the floor. She didn't say anything. The excavation happened 3 days later. Men with county vests and heavy equipment. A small crowd of neighbors who had always suspected that something smelled off about the Millers. Some of them whispering about the family that kept to itself. When they hit metal and opened the truck, there was a pause, that quiet you get when the thing you've been half expecting is suddenly undeniable. The lab came. Evidence collection came. The DA moved faster than I'd dared hope. Arrests followed within a week. I stood in the cold as they led Mom away in cuffs. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She looked at me once, long enough for me to see a sudden, naked hatred that used to be small and clever. "You never deserved that space anyway," she told me on my 30th birthday. As she was bundled into the cruiser, that line was the echo I wanted her to hear in civilized tones, in public with the law between us. I wanted her to understand that the space she stole from me had been reclaimed. Not with theft or lies, but with work and patience and hard evidence. Kendra testified. She didn't excuse anything. She told them what she'd done, what she'd been told, what she'd hidden. Her voice broke, and she kept going. The house deed was transferred out of her name and into a trust where I was the trustee. There was no point in letting the family property slip into the market where some predator could snatch it. I didn't take the house to live in. I kept it maintained but empty for a long time, like a museum of the life Dad had actually built, not the version Mom sold to herself. The trial was ugly, long, and more intimate than any headline should ever be. But it was also clean. Facts beat charm. Paperwork defeated a lifetime of small deceptions. Mom was convicted on charges that involved fraud and the more serious ones that no one had thought to tie to her for years. She got the sort of sentence that stripped her of the things she'd used to dominate. The house, the money, the illusion that she could manipulate consequences. I don't tell myself I'm healed. I have nights where I sit in the empty room that used to be mine and cycle through grief, anger, and a muted kind of relief that hardly feels worthy. But when I drive past the house on Maple Hill now, there's a different weight to my chest. It isn't the crush of loss so much as the quiet satisfaction of a ledger balanced. People ask if revenge changed me. It did because it had to. It took the part of me that kept apologizing for existing and turned it into something stubborn and exact. It didn't make me into a monster. It made me into the one person who refused to let a thief of a mother sleep on the same street as his father's grave. Mom watches her world collapse from behind glass now, and sometimes she writes letters, hot, furious lines that she thinks will wound. They don't. The worst thing she could take from me is gone. I don't have my trophies back. I don't have Dad. But when I stand in the backyard at dusk, under the lilacs, I can dig my hands into the soil and feel something close to peace. Justice didn't fix everything. It did, however, make sure she couldn't smirk about it anymore. And as for the garage, after all that, my cot is gone, my tools are back in their place, and I sleep in a proper bed under my old window. Buddy still visits sometimes when Kendra comes by, as confused as the rest of us about loyalty and family. Life is messy and scarred and entirely mine again. If there's a last line to this whole mess, don't underestimate a person who knows how to dig. They might just unearth the thing you'd rather keep buried.